reports that the European states have plans to submit a request to the UN to activate the snapback mechanism. Although there is no official statements from the EU leaders regarding this, how significant do you see this? Is this move diplomatically acceptable if pursued? And why does Iran claim it has no legal or political foundation?
Thank you so much for having me on QNews. Certainly, the European move by the E3 is some kind of a political pressure. We are aware that Iran is in a very weak position at the moment, especially after the 12-day war and the US-Israeli strike on Iran. And therefore, they are very vulnerable at the moment, especially after the suspension of the negotiations and going forward with the third round or the sixth round after the strikes on the nuclear Iranian sites, in addition to a series of assassinations that was carried out. Here there are endeavors by the European states to appease Trump. When Trump took office in his first term in 2018, he unilaterally withdrew from the 5+1 agreement, and the US, in addition to Germany, withdrew from the Barack Obama agreement signed into in 2015 and considered the United States not committed and reimposed some sanctions. What we are seeing today is complementary to the US pressures that supported Israel to carry out its military operation targeting nuclear sites inside Iran, giving them intelligence on the locations, and that and these recent endeavors are political and economic pressures following the military strikes, especially that the expiration window of the setback mechanism is approaching, and it will be in October 18th, and therefore the European states are trying to take advantage of the mechanism and threaten Iran of the reimposition of the sanctions and to also appease the US ally.
Mr. Azzeddine, Iran insists that it remains within the nuclear deal and blames Europe for violating its own obligations first. In your opinion, does Europe actually have the legal standing to invoke the snapback clause?
Certainly, Europe is making use of all possible instruments to corner Iran in this respect, especially that the Iranian nuclear facilities was not that impacted, and we are not aware of any future of the Iranian future in terms of uranium enrichment. A lot stays uncertain or unclear, and the US still has reservations, as Israel is still pushing to attack Iran and carrying out different schemes to prevent Iran from having a nuclear bomb or a missile program, in addition to dismantling the Iranian regime through intelligence or through internal conflicts. Israel failed to implement, so in addition to the intelligence bodies, they were only successful in carrying out assassinations, but for the economic sanctions, Iran is being economically punished by different states for long years, and they are now very well adapted with the imposition of said sanctions. And I think the most influential factor here is the military strikes against Iran. The economic sanctions can be included under new phases of the Iranian adaptation with the international arena and the Cold War between the West and Iran. The European intervention here, taking advantage of the law in accordance with the signed agreement. And I think that the spokesman of the Iranian Foreign Affairs Ministry, that this has no legal or political basis, will not be very feasible after the European states actually apply for and or provide this request to the Security Council on Tuesday tomorrow, and it will enter into force to use this gap or item in the agreement according to the UN Security Council 2231 of 2015, which enables the reimposition of sanctions under UN supervision.
Okay, Mr. Izzeddin, let me ask you, Iran rejected claims that Russia is pressuring it to halt the enrichment. And what's your assessment of Moscow's role, or are the Russian interests beginning to diverge?
Let me say very clearly, of course, Iran is very significant to Russia, but without any military intervention, especially that the current circumstances do not support the Russian state to enter a new war, especially with the ongoing war with Ukraine, and the military direction to defend and protect Russian interests and completing the position of some very important weapons for their national security. Here, Russia wants to exert political pressure without any on-ground actions. So the Russian support, as long as not militarily, will be very influential in the on the international arena, especially with the United States and the European states, to increase the kinds of weapons being used in Ukraine against Russia. So Russia actually is not available to address the Iranian issue as a priority at the moment. So depending on Russian or Chinese support will not be very feasible or strategic for Iran. What they can leverage on is the political pressure and the shifts in the stances and the restructuring of the negotiations and resuming them once again. If Europe continues in their directions to the Security Council, we will see the reimposition of the six sanctions under the supervision of the United Nations.
Sir, despite the harsh rhetoric of Iran, it still insists that diplomacy is still a strategic tool. What are the diplomatic pathways that still are there and remain open to pursue diplomacy, especially with the US?
Unfortunately, the United States and with the new administration are breaching diplomacy directly. They are militarily intervening with the diplomatic ploys and carry out military strikes. This is unusual for the U.S. Politics. It's very clear here that the United States is completely against Iran, and the Trump administration specifically is completely against Iran, and they want to obliterate the nuclear and military programs as what happened in Libya in 2003. Iran has a chance to resume the negotiations once again, and unfortunately, and I'm sorry to say that Iran will be forced to cooperate again with the IAEA. and they will be forced to accept things or terms that are not appropriate or suitable for their politics because there is a US bias and EU support, in addition to the aggressions with Israel regarding the nuclear file and the missile program. And with the increased pressures on the Iranian side,